Everybody, I'm Madison Holmes.
And I am Macy Holmes. Sorry.
and you're watching Holmes². Here's the photo.
Oh my God. Here's the photo. Just throw it in their face. There you go.
I give it to you.
The people. Oh my God.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We got a big topic. It's big not just because it's on a world stage thing, but it's also big because it's difficult to think about.
Yeah.
This on when was it? On Friday the 13th, lucky day, Israel attacked Iran. And this is supposedly over the whole nuclear deal. That's their justification. You have many camps, but there's the camp that says that it was totally uncalled for. It was an unprovoked attack. And then there's people that say, well, Iran shouldn't have their nuclear weapons, so it was totally justified. Or they're just on the side of Israel and then Zionists, and so they're just generally for anything Israel does. But I'd like to think that camp is a bit smaller than what people make out. That's just my opinion. I know it's a thing.
I can't say one or the other, honestly, on that one.
Fair enough.
How big that camp is, I just don't know.
That answer she just gave.
It's not big in my. It's not big in my camp.
It's not big. No, it's definitely not big in our camp. But that answer she just gave is I don't know. You're gonna hear a lot of I don't knows in this episode because trying to decipher this Israel-Iran thing, and then knowing the geopolitics and the Operation Gladios, the color revolutions that we talked about in our previous episode, knowing all of these things and listening to as many podcasters as we do, it's not an easy answer, okay? It is not as simple as picking sides. There's a good guy, there's a bad guy. It's not that simple. And that sucks because no, it really does. Like, it's hard to listen. You think you have one thing in mind. You know, we listen to people like Brian Berletic. You know, Macy said, let's start there. And I was like, I'm just going to trust the cause. And now that I started talking, she was totally right. So we listened to people.
Damn, always. Sorry.
You know, let's just go straight there.
Yeah. Does not. It goes on that
Sorry,
video.
I had the other one open. This is
Brian Berletic. On the Duran.
On the Duran.
Yeah. And he is the host of the New Atlas.
Yes. And he's quite large on Rumble.
Yes, and he's also got a Telegram platform as well called the New Atlas. So
yes,
yeah.
And why we listen to him is because he brings up the skeptical side. You know, where some people, you get people that will just trust Trump or trust, and you really name a president, they jump on bandwagons, and we idealize.
Yeah. If anything, that's a good starter because I'll keep that context in mind of what you just said about the fact that he is the skeptical side, but there are those that are potentially favor some of the Q movement, and they think of white hats, they think of
trust the plan,
the whole trust the plan
5D
thing.
chess.
I have no problem with you wanting to be optimistic, but
right?
I am a bit more of a realistic person, and I feel like with Brian, his perspective would be less optimistic. Because the thing is that you don't want to necessarily just trust the white hats, or else you might not do anything. Like, if you're being told all the time that everything's fine and it's going to work out and trust the plan, then you've kind of obfuscated your own responsibility if that is not what's going to happen. Where it's like, well, what if that's not going to transpire, this view of everything's going to go peachy? It's like, then that's on you to kind of figure out, well, how are you going to navigate that then? And that's also on you to figure out, well, who do you have to hold responsible and accountable? First, it'd be yourself, because you shouldn't allow yourself to lose skepticism. Skepticism can be a healthy thing. But so adding on to that, why we watch Brian is because he's a type of person where he has what's called continuity of agenda theory. And his theory is that for him, his what we would say his bias is mainly like U.S. hegemony. That's kind of what he focuses and he centralizes on as like his primary, what I would say, Bond villain. But I think that for him, what he does do really well is he takes a look at policy papers and he takes a look at what these think tanks or these people put out, and sometimes that can be a bit of a risk, because if you're paying attention to like the tweets or that Trump's putting out or that any political figure is putting out, sometimes it's really like that's your source, right? It's like that's hard to play with, because how can you verify that that is what it is? Because even I think it was Maddie, you and me were watching the Breaking History one, and we can pull that up. We can pull it up now or later. It's up to you. But I think it was Gordon who might have been saying that it's like Trump was the one who claimed that you can't really trust what comes out of a politician's mouth, and they are never going to be held accountable to it, so they can say anything. And so now that he's a politician, maybe he's applying the fact where it's like if he knows he's not going to really be held accountable to what he says, then he'll just say it, because maybe that's part of the optics. Maybe that's part of a larger game that he's playing. I don't know. And so when Brian goes and sources those things, it's like, hey man, is that really what Trump is leaning towards, or is he actually just playing something else, right? But what he does do really well, and I think that most people really do need to consider from Brian's work and why we will not stop listening to him and why he's worth considering, is this continuity of agenda. And what is that? Because as we know, people do have intentions, and when they decide to express those intentions, to organize their brains, to organize their thinking, because infighting can happen all the time. You see it even in our own little political groups where we need to have a plan, right? It's like, well, he has gone and put in the work to read, well, what is the potential plans that you have marked out here? So
yeah, so what we like about Matthew is Matthew Arrett, he doesn't just assume people's intentions. The reason why we trust but verify is that he literally reads the quotes of the people that he's talking to. He went and read the books of Thomas Malthus, read the works of the families of Julian Huxley and stuff like that.
He reads Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, even people you admire. But he went and read their work, and then when he tells you what they are thinking, it's because they said it in their own words. So it's directly to the source. That's why Matthew's somebody that's really good to follow for historical context and to really understand what's going on. Brian Berletic does similar things in the geopolitical realm. He pulls up the papers and the plans. So
yeah, so many screen share. Yeah, perfect. So this is interesting. I'm not going to lie. I have a bias. When I read stuff like this, it makes me giddy. I'm going to tell you why. Because I love shit that's from the horse's mouth. Like, if it's from the horse's mouth, my brain just goes like, but you said it. Like, look at what you said you want to do, or what you said your intention is. And so, but we will kind of like get away from even our own bias in that sense as time progresses. But for now, we just wanted to show you people this because they might not be aware of it, and it's good to have under your belt. So this is the Saban Center for Middle East Policy at the Brookings Institution.
From 2009.
From 2009. All right. So it says, which path to Persia? Options for a new American strategy toward Iran. And so, Maddie, you can probably go on to the next thing. Yeah, this is the table of contents. It says, Introduction, the trouble with Tehran, U.S. policy options toward Iran. Part 1, dissuading Tehran, the diplomatic option. Chapter 1, an offer Iran shouldn't refuse, persuasion. Chapter 2, tempting Tehran, the engagement option. Part 2, disarming Tehran, the military options. And then chapter 3, 4, 5 in respective order, going all the way invasion, the Iraqi option, airstrikes, leave it to Bibi, allowing or encouraging an Israeli military strike. Part 3, toppling Tehran, regime change. And then I can just keep going on, but you kind of get the point. And so then moving on.
It's a step-by-step guide.
It's literally a step-by-step guide of how.
So chapter 5.
Yeah, it's policy, right? It's like it's
a policy.
It's literally a policy book.
Goal.
The goal, yeah. So here, this is fun. Before we even get to the part that's highlighted, I always like reading a little bit beforehand.
Sure.
So it says goal. As in the case of American airstrikes against Iran, the goal of this policy option would be to destroy key Iranian nuclear facilities in the hope that doing so would significantly delay Iran's acquisition of an indigenous nuclear weapons capability. However, in this case, an added element could be that the United States would encourage and perhaps even assist the Israelis in conducting the strikes themselves, in the expectation that both international criticism and Iranian retaliation would be deflected away from the United States and onto Israel. And then hold on, even underneath it says the logic behind this approach is that allowing Israel to mount the airstrikes rather than the United States provides a way out of the dilemma described in the previous chapter, whereby American airstrikes against Iran could become self-defeating because they would undermine every other American initiative in the Middle East, an outcome exactly the opposite of what a new Iran policy is meant to accomplish. So literally,
and this is
again 2009 that they're writing this, and this is happening right now.
Yeah, one of the things that where people get caught is where he puts emphasis. And it's something you need to look at. These people made this document. That was in 2009. Think of the presidents that were in power then.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trump had his first term. And then Biden came in. Trump is in his second term. And we're here.
We're still on the continuity
of that agenda.
Right?
We are on the continuity of agenda. And so that's what Brian points out. He points at papers like this and he goes, it doesn't matter which government is in because seemingly their plan agenda is still continuing.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Now where Brian...
Well, so there was another piece and I just wanted to read it just because, again, I really want to drive the point home, but what I do think is important is before I read this. It's the one. No, that's fine. You can the last one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before I read this, what we're going to be getting at is that this is important to understand in the context of continuity of agenda, and this looks like it's being written now literally in crayon, and we're seeing it firsthand, and we're in 2025.
Yeah.
This is not. Now, the biggest thing is this is not a criticism necessarily of, is this Trump that's doing this thing? What we are encouraging people to look at is clearly there are intelligence forces and operations and dirty ops that are happening that obviously have led us to this point. And it has happened throughout all the presidencies.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be either well, then all those presidents are bad and they're in on it. Or it could be that maybe some were in on it, maybe some were puppets, maybe some have no choice but to deal with this because it's one of those situations where sometimes people think of Trump in that sense of the John F. Kennedy situation, John F. Kennedy situation with the Cuban Missile Crisis, where they're like, that was totally a CIA front to try and undermine his presidency. They were hoping that he wouldn't be able to get a handle on that. They were hoping that he would, if he can't, there was no way he could come clear and admit that he got an intelligence group that's been, I guess, manipulating their way through all of his policies, because it would show that he's basically just been cooed by an intelligence organization and he has no say whatsoever, right? And there's some people that feel that way towards Trump. We'll get into that a bit more, but I will just read it so that way we can drive it home for the potential of what this continuity of agenda is and the groups, intelligence groups that are definitely clearly it's happening. So it says, before I read what's in the box, it says, for those who favor regime change or a military attack on Iran, either by the United States or Israel, there's a strong argument to be made for trying this option first. Inciting regime change in Iran would be greatly assisted by convincing the Iranian people that their government is so ideologically blinkered that it refuses to do what is best for the people and instead clings?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, to a policy that could only bring ruin on the country. The ideal scenario in this case would be that the United States and the international community present a package of positive inducements so enticing that the Iranian
citizenry would support the deal,
only to have the regime reject it. In a similar vein, Any military operation against Iran will likely be very unpopular around the world and require the proper international context, both to ensure the logistical support the operation would require and to minimize the blowback from it. That was dyslexic, sorry. And then it's underlined. The best way to minimize international
Opprobrium.
and maximize support, however grudging or covert, is to strike only when there is a widespread conviction that the Iranians were given but then rejected a superb offer, one so good that only a regime determined to acquire nuclear weapons and acquire them for the wrong reasons would turn it down. Under those circumstances, the United States or Israel could portray its operations as taken in sorrow, not anger, and at least some in the international community would conclude that the Iranians brought it on themselves by refusing a very good deal. Guys, this was written in 2009. But yeah.
And so people need to watch people like Brian. That's why we watch Brian, so we can see, oh, look, this isn't some surprise war. It's the same thing that happened in Syria. There's history here, and people don't really look at the history. They get overwhelmed by the fact that, oh, this war's going on and now I'm being affected in geopolitics and all this jazz. But Brian really hits it home with the papers and the physical agenda. So it's good to look at that and understand that there is this entity. People used to call it, the swamp. And they were like, oh, Trump's going to drain the swamp. Clearly he hasn't. Now, Brian and some other skeptics would say because perhaps Trump is in on it. There's also what I'm a bit more inclined to lean towards is the fact that, just like Macy alluded to, JFK, he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces,
Scatter it into the wind.
Scatter it into the wind.
Do you think they're gonna let you do that?
Do you think they're gonna let you do that? That's really hard to do. He knows he got shot. Trump, I think, learned this and is learning this with time. I think that's why he's starting to play a bit of a hard. Now, I'm not, Trump is the one and Trump is Jesus and we should trust him with everything and he's trust the plan. I'm not that kind of girl, but this is the middle ground. This whole podcast that we're going to walk you through on this whole conflict is going to be the complications with listening to people, because Brian is got really good knowledge, but he will tell you that he conflates Trump and the Trump administration. Some people say he might argue because Trump picked the administration. You got to look at why he picked these people and stuff like that. If they're not in his pocket, whose pocket are they in? These are questions you have to ask. Not to say that we have all the answers, because there's still this is ongoing and there's a lot to think about. But trying to answer the questions and really pose the questions is kind of the biggest thing in all of this.
Yeah, and it's not like necessarily, as Maddie's pulling up the next thing here, it's not that necessarily like we think that Trump's gonna magically just solve all of our freaking problems. It's more so he might have his own agenda that might not necessarily be these oligarchical types agenda, but it doesn't mean that his is necessarily all that amazing either. For all we know, it's just he wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize for bringing peace to the Middle East because he wants to go down as the president that did that, right? It's like that's more of an image thing. And so it's like, if that's the case, it's like, whoop-de-doo, congratulations. Like, you know what I mean? And he might be aiming for that because that's his passion. I mean, I was talking to Dad about this in the car, and I was like, that doesn't really change the fact that during the whole COVID pandemic, he was totally spouting on the vaccine. So it's like he may say that he doesn't want the Middle East to get bombed into oblivion, but his people are getting killed. Right. But so it's just like things he's paying attention to, things he's not paying attention to. You know what I mean? And for what purposes? Ego, genuine care. That's the hard part to find that line.
Yeah. So this is another podcast that we did this week in preparation to understand the whole Iran-Israel deal.
This is on the Sean Newman podcast.
Yeah, the Sean Newman podcast. Yeah. He's a local Alberta podcaster here. And Tom has been, because I've done most of my listening first to people like Brian Berletic, because I really think that it's valuable to look at these papers. But but also Cynthia Chung just came out with a 3-part series called Make Who's America Great Again. And she points out the fact that there are some serious financial troubles going to hit the US because they're about to refinance some of their debt, and they may not be able to refinance it, first of all. They're running out. They don't have as much production in the country either. Their credit card debt is worse than it's ever been. So there's a lot of these just financial debts that are stacking up, and it could really turn on them. And so she was pointing out some of the continuity of agenda and some of the not so great things that the Trump and his administration are doing in response to trying to scramble and save this debt plane from crashing. So because I started there, when I listened to this Tom Luongo one, it was a little bit of a flip because Tom said, and between that one and this one, so this is a platform that just recently launched, Pluralia Dialogos. Matthew Arrett is involved with it, but a lot of other really good thinkers. And my whole clan watched this one live. It's with, so Garland Nixon posted it, but this is
Martin Steve, Garland Nixon, Joaquin Flores, Matthew Arrett.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that they were talking about on that particular episode was the goal of some Europe, who's also in a financial crisis right now. So they're reaching for collateral and anything they can do to gain. That's why a lot of people say Canada is a target of theirs, because we have a lot of resources that they could put on their books to help with them kick the can down the road. Because right now their economy is crashing. They are going down. So between, they were talking about how some of the Anglo-American empires, their oligarchs, and Europe, they are looking to split MAGA from Trump. That was one thing Garland Nixon brought up. And that's a similar argument to what Tom Luongo was making. This whole affair threw everybody out because, Trump, one of his main pillars was he wants to make, like Macy said, to be the peace president. Then why would you go and if you are in the pocket, or if you are the junior partner, as Netanyahu joked around about, if you're the partner of Israel, then clearly you sanctioned this attack. You allowed Israel to attack Iran. That goes against your peace principles. Why would you do that? And it really set MAGA for a loop. And Garland Nixon said, this is the goal. And so did Tom, to splinter that relationship. Because the thing with Trump is, and this is a fact, that he is maintaining relationships with the BRICS countries. Russia, China, Iran, and they are all doing stuff that the NATO countries, the European Union, they hate it. They absolutely loathe it. But Trump is working with them, negotiating, making deals. However, he's talking with them, which is more than a lot of other people are doing. And so this splintering, they're targeting Trump. So good guy or not, they want MAGA, that's the base. If you don't have the people, it's really hard. That's Macy, I didn't actually think we would bring in Gene Sharp, but you said maybe we can. But that I'm thinking about, Gene Sharp said and Gene Sharp is the guy that basically did the blueprint for how to do color revolutions.
Yeah, we alluded to him in our one of our episodes. I forget which one.
I think it might have
been Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, Tiananmen Square. That was
Tiananmen Square, yeah. And he was the one that did the documentary How to Start a Revolution, which is technically a propagandist piece because they paint the whole thing as to why it's a good thing. Which in part, like 4 to 1 route, in part, there's some part good truths in there. We even have our own experience of that with the trucker convoy. But then I would say that there's obviously some not good forces at work when bad forces get a hold of that knowledge. And you got to ask yourself, like, they were like, oh, even throughout the whole documentary, it was a little pamphlet that he wrote in describing how you can do these color revolution type tactics. And they just so subtly go like, and it just started spreading everywhere and we have no idea. And I'm like, well, that's a little bit suspicious. But yeah.
They're just giving it back to you. the people.
Well, it's like when they don't want something, they burn the books. And when they want something, apparently this book spread across the whole world.
Yeah,
it's like, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring Gene Sharp up, as Macy said, predicted we would, is because he made the, when he was in Oxford, which is the school of the Round Table Movement. And if people don't remember the Round Table Movement, we alluded to it in our very first episode, I think.
Yeah. It's good to keep in mind that even the Round Table
Our second
movement,
episode. Sorry.
Yes. The Round Table Movement, the Fabian Society, they are think tanks. And it's good to understand that what we just read from you about the Brookings Institution, it's like that's the kind of stuff that they think tanks would write and think about.
These think tanks would come up with this and make these plans and then put it into government, because these think tanks always influence the government and NGOs. That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So at Oxford University, Gene Sharp said he had the epiphany that what makes dictatorships run? Well, if they don't have people are the resource, then they can't continue doing their thing. So you turn the people against the dictator or the person that's in that maybe the oligarchs don't want in. If you split the society from the leader, then you can take out the leader, and then now you're in control.
Mm-hmm.
So look at what they're doing. The goal is to, as Garland said, take MAGA away from supporting Trump. And this war, or this attack by Israel on Iran, started to do that. And that's one of the things that me and Macy also considered listening to, this Pluralia dialogue here. The Tom Luongo, he also brought this up, because you also want to consider, so even looking at the papers, okay, you got that side. There's a continuity of agenda. There's intelligence agencies that have been pushing for this for a long time now. They got it.
Mm-hmm.
But Trump also working with the BRICS nations. That's a threat. So Trump is still a threat, even if he's been trying to play this dance with his weird administration choices, people that are like in the technocracy.
Mm-hmm.
But pull away him from the people, get the people to turn on him, and there you go. So that was another thing that made me realize, okay, so it's a bit more complicated, because you don't want that to happen. If Trump is doing a nice thing with the BRICS, at least negotiating with them for some, because even in, which podcast was it where they were talking about the negotiations for this war, Russia stepped in and said,
that was a Breaking History one?
The Breaking History one.
Yeah, if you want to pull that one up.
Yes, I will do that.
People
yes, these are just the resources we've been trying to get into us to understand, because it's complicated.
Yeah, for this one, it was a good perspective, because so Brian Berletic would be the type where he would not think that he would not agree with everything that gets posed in this one, because it's like, or even by Tom Luongo, because it's the idea of, I guess we call it war theater, and that idea that could be a potentiality is that maybe Trump saying a few things that would get a lot of oligarchical technocrats, really CIA, MI6 bureaucrats from these think tanks really happy. So maybe he's saying these things, but on perhaps the side, like what he was saying in terms of like, yeah, Israel, woo, you go bomb them, man. Like, good job, right? But maybe on the side, he could have been in contact with the leader of Iran and been like, okay, we're going to be initiating these strikes, or Israel's going to do this thing. If you have vacant facilities or empty labs that we can bomb, then we can play it that way, right?
Okay,
and
that's
so
in this one, not the Breaking History. That's
sorry, that's in the narrative.
Oh,
okay, my bad.
They might allude. I don't know if they allude to it in the Breaking History, but this one was also, because what you just allude to, it's not just that's a potential, that's already happened once. So both in this one and in this one with Mike Adams on the Health Ranger Report, I think it was in 2020, Trump's previous regime, there was an attack on an Iranian general, if I'm not mistaken. And Iran literally, and Trump says this in an interview, which they reveal in the narrative, this episode right here. They play the clip of Trump saying, Iran called me up and said, we have to retaliate. You know, they just killed one of our generals. And if we don't, our people they'll throw a hissy fit. We need to save face. So we are going to attack here, empty out those facilities. Or like, we're gonna tell you where we're hitting. That way you can make sure that the damage is minimal as possible and no casualties. That happened in his previous regime. Well, as Mike Adams points out in his episode, this one, and this is the funny thing, this whole thing is supposedly about stopping Iran from, having nuclear weapons. So Israel attacks. The first attack wasn't just on nuclear facilities, though. If I'm not mistaken, Israel attacked multiple things, but they did hit a couple spots. There was an attack on Saturday later, but that was by the US, this recent Saturday. And the US attacked specific nuclear facilities, but they only attacked entrances and exits. Like, they were very non-consequential spots. But surprisingly, there was nobody in the building. Iran had evacuated the people in the nuclear facilities, and there were no casualties. So, to me, when I saw the clip about Iran calling Trump up in 2020 from his previous term and saying, we got to save face. We're going to help you brother out. Get your people out of there.
Mhm.
I'm thinking that Trump went, hey, you know that thing that we did back in 2020? We're going to do a switcheroo because Israel did this thing. Iran retaliated. Trump went, we're going to get rid of your nuclear facilities, get rid of the threat that this whole thing started on. We're going to get rid of the threat by nuking your facilities, get your people out of there. And that, to me, that makes sense because of the history that's already happened. And then the intentions of why Trump would do this is a whole other thing, because some people might say, you could be inclined to think, if you do this, then it takes away the reason for the war in the first place. Israel attacked supposedly, like we said, to get the nuclear facilities out of Iran. So Trump took them out. So technically the reason for the war should be over. So now technically Trump can walk away, be like, see, we did it, done. Let's go back to the negotiating table, which is, Macy, you said earlier that that's kind of what looks like it's going to happen. You said the news that just came out recently looks like new negotiations are about to.
Yeah, like right now there's being talk of a ceasefire
Mhm.
between Iran and Israel, and Trump's been posting about it, and so perhaps he is taking this as an opportunity to wipe his hands clean. I don't know. And then this is the same thing. It's like you could think in the way of Brian Berletic, and it could be one of those things where they use it as to set up a false flag, where it's just like, oh, okay, we're gonna do a ceasefire. We're gonna start with Iran and make sure that that goes smoothly within the next 6 hours, because I read it today that that's the new development. And if I was Brian Berletic, how I would be thinking about this is I would probably be like, okay, they might set that up where it's like, oh, Iran didn't do this thing, and then they set up some sort of false flag, blame it on Iran. Israel's the victim, and then we just continue from that front. And that could also be another perspective. I don't know how it's gonna play out at all, but that could be another perspective. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the whole point, is that it's like there's some views where it's like they post some really good thoughts for consideration. You do need to be critical of every single individual that you listen to. I think that even for what you were just mentioning about the narrative, it's like, and Tom Luongo, and the idea of potentially the mega movement getting split, or even the potentiality of this being a harm, and maybe we should support, like maybe they should continue to keep trying to support Trump, because maybe they're trying to set it up on purpose where they take him more and more out of the equation. They start weakening him and almost like dragging him back a bit, or even the idea that we were just mentioning again, what you were saying about, you were just saying it. I literally
The
forgot.
facilities being empty and
Yeah, exactly. That theater
saving
warfare.
face.
It's
Yeah.
like that's also potentiality. That's also something that could be going on. There was a mentioning that we were talking about in one of the, I forget which episode it was, when you were talking about how they were trying to say that maybe it's important. Oh, E.M. Burlingame saying that they want to take Trump away from the technocrats, right? So that's, again, another possibility, because on top of all this, we can't forget that that's also an agenda that's being pushed for, is that whole idea of a technocratic state. And on top of that, Brian's put up a lot of good sources and information that I would be leaning towards, as well as Matthew's done this as well, and Gordon, that they are our deep state is trying to infiltrate the BRICS and trying to figure out how to go to a war with China for reasons that are not actually true on our end, where they're infiltrating us, but because they are breaking free of Anglo-American hegemony ties that held them down for a long time, and they're now trying to figure out how to self-sustain themselves. And parasites don't like that. Parasites don't like it when you figured out how to get rid of them. You went on a cleanse, so to speak, and they're like, no. So yeah, so those are also some important things that are worth considering. So
yeah, no, that's important, because that's why the BRICS nations, they've been doing this coalition together, is because like it's in Russia's interest that this war stops. They don't want, because even on Gordon is Matthew's partner on Breaking History. I always show you guys, because Matthew gets to post Breaking History on his account, and I wanted to support him, but it's literally called Breaking History if you go on Rumble, and they have a whole, it's Badlands Media, sorry, it's Badlands Media, and they have a segment called Breaking History, and that's with Gordon, who's also a really, really good, thorough researcher. And him and Matthew have a really, if you're just looking for a regular, because they do weekly updates, so that's a good way to go. But he literally showed a map, and Macy, you and I know, now that we've seen a map, how Turkey is a land bridge. Well, Turkey being like here, Iran's right here, and it's like another land bridge. So between the two of them, and then being Russia,
it's what is described as the underbelly to China.
It's yeah, exactly. And so Russia's right beside the two. And if you were to, that's why Russia also has this skin in the game, because one, there's the north to south transcontinental railway that they're trying to build, which is surpassing the long overdue maritime empire that the British and the European colonialists have had power over the water and the sea trade for the longest time. Well, to surpass that, the BRICS nations want to build this north to south transcontinental railway to connect all of them, and that way they can trade a bit more freely and cooperate more with one another. And so between that and then Iran literally being a part of the Russian border and the way you can get up there for warfare, that's why Russia has incentive to do the negotiation talks. And that's part of the reason the G7 just happened here in Calgary, Alberta. Calgary, Alberta's been getting a lot of attention lately. But Trump came and he made the remark, why did you take Russia out of, it should be the G8, not the G7. Russia should be here negotiating. And then he left early. Russia has said to prevent this escalation of nuclear war, we can help facilitate, and we can refine, we can take the nuclear energy and from Iran, and we can do the work and then give them the nuclear energy, because everybody should have nuclear energy. Everybody has, that's the next step in energy efficiency and sustainability. So everybody should have that, and nobody can take that away from anybody. So if Iran wanted that, they should be able to have that. Even having nuclear weapons, everybody has the right to defend themselves. It's just not the way it's going. So to help with the negotiations, Russia's like, we'll help. We'll take it. That way, the US, you can feel comfortable. It's no longer in Iran's hands. It's in our hands. But Iran, don't worry, you will get the nuclear energy that you so need and deserve and blah. So these are all like cool. And Trump seemed on board for that. So
yeah, he seemed in favor of that idea.
So since, negotiate a ceasefire may happen, we'll see. Again, time is the teller of all things. So these are just things everybody should be thinking about. All these perspectives come together. But that's a possibility that could be going forward. Now that's not necessarily a simple win for Israel, Netanyahu. This can't end for him because, and I think that's part of the reason some people say that Trump knew about the attack. Knew or not, how he's responded is in a manner that, in my opinion, thus far, to fix. It has been, we always say in my household, it's like his plane, his US plane, all of this chaos and the war, it's a crashing plane. But he's not just gonna jump ship, which is what most of the oligarchs and the empires are doing, and the technocrats. They'll just jump ship, go somewhere else. They don't get arrested. They just go to an island somewhere, and then
they let you die, and then they come back and they try to figure out what of the rubble they can just steal back for themselves.
Exactly. I don't think Trump's doing that. I think he's trying to land the crashing plane. He's going for a crash landing, which is still something. And that's similar to what my family has been saying is maybe happening here in Alberta with Danielle Smith. This whole, when you have because we have a deep state here in Alberta too. Everybody everywhere really does have a deep state, and there's hence Matthew's the clash of the two Americas, the clash of the two Canadas, the clash of the two, because there's two bilateral hemispheres. There's two versions of every country because there's two values that everybody has in their head, two completely different values. So, and we see this even on a local level here in Alberta. Danielle Smith can't save us because we also have this terrible caucus. And it's not really in favor of the grassroots people. We got this same oligarch here that everywhere else does that we're battling. So just keeping stuff like this in mind when crazy events like this come up, and there will be more, not looking for a simple bad guy or looking at somebody as if it was a good guy, recognizing the fact that there is two bilateral hemispheres, each have their own agenda. There's two narratives in every country that are trying to play it out at the same time. And understanding that is essential in trying to decipher through these podcasts. We just gave you guys like 6 podcasts to watch, and watching one of them, I'd watched a Tom Luongo one, and I went, Dad, how do you do this? This is so much, because you have to change your axioms all the time. You have to change your mind. You're like, I thought this way, and then I got new information, and now I don't know if my previous information is right. And that's hard because everybody wants, the left hemisphere wants certainty, something that's understandable, it's static, it doesn't change, and that way we can feel comfortable with our map. You don't have to go over all of the geography. You don't have the rug pulled from under you and go, oh, I thought I knew my world. Nobody really wants that.
Yeah, no, the whole point of this is to encourage people to try and think things through. Because I think that you have a part of you, what we call our left hemisphere, that really wants certainty and wants to be able to grasp things, to put it in stasis, to be like, aha, this is what it is. And it could be partially, momentarily, because time is the teller of all tales. It's like that is the teller of all truths. It's like that will be the final determining outcome is what happens through time, and things change, right? So it's like maybe partially momentarily, like so you're not wrong, but it's not absolute. And then like so when you're getting to that point, I think that's the whole point of narrative control, is that they know that that's a part of us that is in us that they want to placate to. They want to placate to that part of you that wants to pick a side, that wants to get dichotomous and go like Trump is like all-encompassing good guy and blah, 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 or it's a little
Yeah, you
bit
can
leaning
expand upon
towards
that with even what Tom was saying about making Iran the new victim and basically discarding Israel. That's one thing we also didn't mention, which is a potential narrative that they're going to give us. Now that you've brought it up.
Oh, you mean like the why now? Why make Israel, like why are we allowed to be anti-Semitic against Israel now
Mhm.
and turning it over to make it Iran actually the victim instead?
Mhm. Mhm.
Did you want to expand on that a bit more? Because I didn't like, I listened to the Breaking History and the Brian Berletic one, but I didn't get to the Tom one yet.
That was the Tom and Alex Craner. They kind of went at it. Actually, I don't think I showed you guys that one yet.
That one I put in the Telegram. Okay, you got it.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
this
Yeah.
one. So this is on Crypto Rich. He's a really good podcaster. He's UK he's in the UK, but he's originally from Pakistan. But on that one, Tom Luongo paints, because we weren't allowed to criticize Israel. If you did that, you were anti-Semitic, you were anti-Jew. But
Right.
now, Steve Bannon, who's pro, now he's like, this whole war needs to come to an end. That's new for him. And all of a sudden we are allowed to, even all the European countries, Tom Luongo said they're literally investing. If you look at the markets, they're investing into Iran. That's weird. That is very weird. And they condemned Israel's attack on Iran. That's weird. That's very weird. So suddenly Netanyahu's suddenly getting more and more isolated as this new Hitler, as this new Germany.
Yeah, like that's, again, this plays into the nuances of what the heck is going on. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if, let's say they had some sort of way of creating regime change in Israel, or sorry, I mean Iran, or they had some sort of way of weakening it through terrorist proxies around its area, exhausting it, or even now this in European investment, at which, you know, being bought and paid for is definitely a thing. So I don't know what's going on there. But if that was the case, then Israel's no longer really needed, is it? Because Israel was meant to act as the problem to the reaction to the solution of what Iran's going through. If you can infiltrate Iran another way, you don't really need to worry about using Israel's the excuse anymore.
Right. And that's what I got rid of it in the beginning when we showed the pages of that 2009 plan. Which photo was it? Because that was chapter 5. Do you remember me?
I'm sorry, you're looking forward like midway through here and you haven't found it.
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, that? Okay, yeah.
That's chapter 5. Allowing our
in that one,
encroaching-
they were basically saying that in the plan, they're going to blame it on Israel.
Okay, yeah, and then the other one saying the next step was regime change. So you just said if they can find other means to get into Iran, they don't no longer need Israel.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like sometimes it's the expressions like where it's like they eat their own, right? It's like that you got to keep in mind. It's like the minute that you serve a purpose, they'll literally just discard you. So that if that game's being played, we really do need to pay attention to that, because again, if Steve Bannon one day says we need to like go against Iran for American hegemony, and then we need to go to war with China, and then the next day he's going like, maybe we should hold back off on Iran. It's like, this is not a god. You shouldn't be worshiping everything he says just because he changed his mind from one day to the next. It's like, figure out no offense, figure out how to think it through yourself in the sense of like maybe hold it in your hand. Hold it like what we were saying. It's like you're never not in the middle of something. So it's like hold it and then be like, maybe I need more context. And like we said, time is usually the thing that's gonna be the revealer. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have convictions, because at the end of the day, I just don't want nuclear war. Like my conviction is I don't want people to die. Like that's kind of the conviction here. And my conviction is that there's been enough evidence to show that we have ourselves a deep state that not a lot of people fully truly understand. So that's what I would like to keep pursuing.
Yeah, because
And that's
even
what we encourage people to
Klaus
keep
Schwab
pursuing.
said, I'm pretty sure it was Klaus Schwab, said that there will be no Israel. And then everybody went kind of glossed over, and that just went in one ear and out the other. But I think Israel served its purpose, made the chaos it needs. But there's no collateral you can get in Israel, really. It's like even the state of Israel, we know from Matthew's work how it was created, how it literally was brought into fruition, and then they literally put all the Jews there, and then so I don't think they care about Israel now that it's served its purpose. I think they can, if, like Klaus Schwab said, they can just up and vanish, it can just get demolished, and they won't blink an eye because they basically made it to destroy it in the first place. We can do a whole nother episode on that, because that's a crazy, crazy wormhole. That one's a big rabbit
That
hole.
one's long.
And yeah. But there's a lot.
Yeah, I think that a main message that I really wanted people to walk away from before we close it off is that, that part of you that's wanting that certainty, remember it can get weaponized, and they're counting on it. So try not to get too myopic in your thinking. That's why we listen to all of these different podcasters in their different perspectives. Not all of them agree with each other.
No.
There's infighting, but in some sense, it's a good thing because at the very least, there's some form of respect amongst these guys in the sense that they all, at the very least, don't want to see these parasites win, and they don't want to see people die. And so, but they may not agree on everything, but that's why listeners like us, we're trying to figure it out as well, because like me and Maddie, we're young, so I don't really have too much of historical context for all of this. So even for me to say to people, it's like we would encourage you where it's like, okay, you're listening to some sort of person, they're coming out with a theory, play it out. Did it happen? Right? Has it happened? Go back in your historical time frame if you can. Memory, time, the thing that is getting manipulated to get rid of, scrolling on your phone.
Only one hemisphere can really understand time. Only one hemisphere actually takes that in, and it's not the left hemisphere.
No, the right hemisphere is the one that would trust time to do what time's going to do. It's just and it knows it's going to take it into consideration. But so when you're got the left hemisphere though, and it needs to focus in on something so that way it can pay attention to it, it does negate the continuity of what's around it because it's focusing in. So that means it's putting something in a moment of time in stasis so that way it can identify it and define it, right? Momentarily is when the right hemisphere would say that, momentarily, right? So again, you can get all of these different perspectives, and when you do, it's a little bit easier, I think, to try and go like, so it could be this, it could be that, right? And we don't get discouraged. Another thing as well is don't get discouraged about, oh, it's too much, because that's another thing that gets weaponized. So we already know that that's something as well based on our hemisphere work where it's like that. They would also be counting on you to feel discouraged that your left hemisphere can't get a grasp on it. And so you just give up. You're just like, screw it. I'm not going to care anymore. It's like, this is why I don't pay attention to politics, right? It's either it's too complicated or, look, it's just the same thing again. And it's like, yes and no, because it's happening to you and it's going to happen continuing on. And if that's the case, then it's like that you choosing to ignore that and walk away from it is just going to perpetuate the cycle. And then your grandchildren or the future generations are just stuck in this freaking loop of economic collapses all the time, economic booms and busts, and for what, for why, and what's the context surrounding why we even have that? Can we have something better? Why aren't we working towards that? Right? It's a lot, but just don't get discouraged. Keep listening to all sorts of different voices, and don't get too religious about it. And I think it was on Man in America, and it was the David Bros one that I was listening to on Technocracy. Really good episode. Encourage you guys to watch that. And it was Seth Holhouse is his name. It was Seth that was saying, he was like, I don't really worship any man except I only worship God. And I was just like, hey man, like that's so cool. Like I'm totally for that. But like the whole I don't worship any man. I'm like, yes, exactly. You shouldn't. So yeah.
Yeah, just understanding every podcaster has a brain. So, you can look at good versus evil, but when you're discerning a person, even like a Trump, or if you watch Brian Berletic and go, where's his bias? Where's he right? Where's his bias? It's easier for us to discern that. And one of the things me and Macy will account for our own hemisphere bias because we know the brain. A lot of people don't account for their own bias and getting stuck in their own positive feedback loop because they don't understand their brain. Whereas me and Macy go, there's a lot we don't know because we know that we have different biases, we have to listen to more people to account for those biases. So knowing the brain definitely helps everybody.
That's our bias.
That's our bias.
All right. So thank you guys, everybody, for enduring that. I know that, again, it was a lot, but your minds are more than capable of it. And so are ours, because again, I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out. Maddie did a great job articulating everything so eloquently for you guys. I was paying attention to that. I was like, Maddie's doing a really good job, like painting the picture. So thank you guys for that. And, work at doing that yourself. That's also just work at trying to figure it out and how to articulate it. And so, yeah, this, do you want to just say this has been? Yeah, this has been Holmes².